Recording in progress.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Good morning, Mr. Adams and everyone. It's 10 o'clock. Are we ready to start?
One Mayor, this is Fulton Dixon. Yes, I'm ready.
All right. This is my first hearing. This is my first millage rate hearing as mayor. Are we going to take a roll? Do we need to do that, Mr. Adams?
Yes.
All right.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, this is the first millage rate hearing for FY 2022, Tuesday, August 24th, at 10 a.m. The Honorable Catherine F. Ryle, District 1.
Present.
The Honorable Carmelita Gums, District 2. I see her signing in. The Honorable Helen Z. Willis, District 3.
President, someone needs to mute their phone.
The Honorable J.C. Sebastian, District 4. The Honorable Corey A. Reeves, District 5. And the Honorable Natasha Williams, District 6.
City
Councilwoman-
Clerk.
Yes,
City
Councilman
Clerk,
Gums.
I'm present.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we have a quorum.
All right. Let's begin, Miss Slayton Dixon.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Thanks. This morning, this is, as I mentioned, this is our first public hearing in regards to adopting our FY 2022 tax millage rate. And so want to note that our virtual meetings will be the first one here, August 24th at 10 a.m. Our second meeting will be August the 31st at 10 a.m. And then our third meeting will be August the 31st at 6 p.m. And that's where we will vote on the proposed millage rate. Next slide. Okay. Here, I want to kind of go through how the citizens can actually apply for the taxes, for the homestead exemption. And so in order to have qualified for this benefit, they would have had to apply by April 1st, 2022. So if they want to submit information for the basic homestead exemption for FY 23, they will need to do it before April the 1st, 2023. And all homestead exemption filings are applied for directly with the Fulton County Board of Assessors office. They can do that by mail, in person, or online. And I've listed the phone number here, which is 404-612-6440, extension 4. And also we have the address listed here, which is the Peachtree Center North Tower main office at 235 Peachtree Street, Northeast Suite 1100 at Atlanta, Georgia 30303. or the South Fulton Service Center, which is 5600 Stonewall Tail Road, Suite 224, College Park, Georgia 30349. And then also list the website for applied online. And so the documents that they will need in order to apply for the homestead exemption will be a Georgia driver's license or Georgia identification. They will need their parcel number. The owner's name is listed on the deed, the property address, the contact phone numbers, the social security numbers, state of residence, and then they need a current registration for all vehicles, and the registration must be in Fulton County. Date of birth for the owner and the spouse, and then a trust affidavit if the property is in the name of a trust. Next slide, please. And so just kind of want to give some basic things here that they will need to know, that they can't claim a homestead exemption if you claim one anywhere else. So they can't have a homestead exemption on multiple properties within Fulton County. And the homestead exemption does not apply to commercial or rental properties or a second home. Married couples may only claim one exemption, even if they own property separately. The homestead exemption renews each year automatically as long as the person owns and occupies the home as their primary residence. And if the names on the deeds change, the person listed on the new deed who occupies the property will need to reapply for a homestead exemption. So if that home is sold for any reason, then that homestead exemption will fall off. Next slide. Just more things that we need to know, that while homeowners in the city of South Fulton may qualify for a basic homestead exemption, there are different exemptions that they may apply for through Fulton County and the Fulton County school system. There are many different exemptions, such as a full medical disability, and also disability exemptions are available for our veterans or their surviving spouses. And exemptions are also available for surviving spouses of peace officers and firefighters that are killed in the line of duty. And many of these special exemptions have requirements for age and or income. So they can contact the Fulton County Tax Assessor's Office for further details on those additional exemptions. Next slide. And so how does the homestead exemption reduce property tax? So each property is appraised at a fair market value. The property is then taxed at 40% of the fair market value to come up with the assessed value. The homestead exemption amount is then deducted from the assessed value in order to calculate the taxable value. So tax amount are calculated using the city, school, and county millage rate times the taxable value. Next slide. So here I'll give an example of how does the homestead exemption reduce your property tax. And we'll notice on the left side of the screen here, where the fair market value is at $100,000, and as I mentioned, we take 40% of that fair market value to come up with the assessed value. So of that 40% of the $100,000 is $40,000. So if you have no local exemptions, then it's going to be multiplied by the millage rate, which right now the city's millage rate is 12.899. So the city of South Fulton property tax would be $515.96. If we'll take a note of the right side of the screen here, using the same calculation, but now allowing a 3% local exemption, you get a reduction of $30,000 off of that assessed value. So now your taxable value is $10,000. And multiplying that $10,000 by the millage rate of 12.899, you come up with the city of South Fulton property tax at $128.91. So you see, you get a savings here of $386.97 by ensuring that you apply for any of the local exemptions. Next slide. And so here, kind of go through the property tax 101, where we talk about the tax rate is applied once again to the assessed value of the taxable property and calculate the amount of the property tax to be paid. So the millage rate is usually stated as dollars per thousand. So the millage rate of 5 mills is $5 per thousand of assessed value, which is the rate of 0.005. And so the millage rate is established each year by the levying authority, which is the council. And so here we just go through once again, looking at a market value of a property of $150,000. And so its assessed value would be $60,000. So here we just kind of show that if you take that 40%, which is $60,000, multiplied by say 5 mills, then the annual property tax would be $300. So this is just once again going through just how to calculate the assessed value and what the tax will be. Next slide. And so here we'll talk about the rollback rate. So the rollback rate is the millage rate that would raise the same amount of revenue as of last year if applied to the current value of the property that was on the last year's tax digest. So when we calculate the rollback rate, that rate would be 9.699. But we're recommending a millage rate of 12.899. So if we were to say take that rollback rate, the value of that rollback rate is basically $12,788,120. So that is the amount of expected revenue that the city would have to actually back off of their projected current revenue for property tax. Next slide. And so here, tax rate comparison, our current millage rate for FY22 is 12.899. And as I mentioned, we're recommending that the millage rate for FY 2023 remains at 12.899. And so the millage rate is not being increased in the city of South Fulton. So want to definitely make that understandable to the citizens of South Fulton. The tax rate will be the same for 2022 as it was in 2021. And the advertised increase of 56.32% is due to the annexation of Fulton Industrial Boulevard on last year. Next slide. And so here we just kind of give another tax rate comparison on the basic homestead property. Once again, kind of going through and just showing what the city property taxes would be if they actually had take the last year. If we took the last year's rate, which would have been $485.56, and with the homestead, excuse me, this is with the homestead exemption. So our current city property taxes would be $515.96. Next slide. And this is just showing here a notice of our current tax digest and 5-year history levy that was actually posted in the local newspaper to advertise our public hearing. As I mentioned on the first beginning slide, we're the 24th of August, which is today, the first meeting at 10 a.m. Our second hearing will be August the 31st at 10 a.m. and the third and voting meeting will be on August the 31st at 6 p.m. And the next 2 meetings will be virtual as this meeting. Next slide. And so following the reason for the recommendation of keeping the millage rate as the same is because developing and operating a capital budget for a municipality is definitely a very complex and layered task. And we prepare revenue and personnel projections as well as examine the requests that have been submitted by all of our departments. And so it's a balancing act between the desired service levels and the cost of those service levels. So with the projections and expenditures for the FY23 budget, we in finance recommend maintaining the current millage rate. Next slide. So that concludes my presentation for the first millage rate hearing. So at this time, if you have any questions.
All right, thank you. I want to let everybody know the queue is open. I'm going to be looking for the hands too. I see Councilwoman Willis.
Thank you for recognizing me. I tried to go to the queue, Mayor, just for your information. The queue, the meeting is not highlighted in the queue, so it prevents us from going to the meeting and raising our hands. So that's why I resulted to raising my hand via Zoom. But thank you for recognizing me. Miss Dixon, a couple of years ago, I think it was maybe General Assembly session 2020, Representative Bazemore did legislation that was equivalent to the legislation in North Fulton that prevented I'm trying to figure out how to explain it. The purpose of it was to prevent taxpayers from being taxed out their homes. So as their property values increase, we know that property taxes increase, and the assumption is we were increasing property values, but it wasn't that. It was because the market was driving the property values up, which caused higher taxes. But they were supposed to cap, and I can't remember if it was just for seniors or if it was for residents, period. They were supposed to cap like a certain percentage. They could only cap a certain percentage of the assessment rate, which will prevent the people from being taxed out of their homes. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but do you know what I'm talking about?
Councilman Willis, I am not familiar with that, but I definitely will look into that just to see if that's something that the residents would need to contact the Board of Assessors, since Fulton County Board of Assessors, since they pretty much assess the values of the property. But we'll make note of that, and I will check into that.
Okay, thank you. Please do. They can't not increase more than 3% in 1 year. And so in other words, you're saying that would have to be done on a property tax assessor's part.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay. And I guess my question to you is if we could just defer or check with the Fulton County tax assessor to make sure that didn't happen. Because I know that the assessment is just what the overall increase is, but it's not supposed to be, the actual tax bill is not supposed to be more than 3%.
Okay, all right, I have that noted.
And I just want to make sure, I'm pretty sure they have factored that calculation in, but there has been issues in the past with the incorrect calculation of property tax assessment notices that have gone out in the past. And so my other question is, Councilman Morale will need to get with you because we are working and we put forth through the legislation process a legislation to roll back the millage rate. I think we are requesting at 0.5%. So we need to get with you if you can give us a calculation of how that would impact the current millage rate and how that would impact the current budget. Because at an increase of 56%, I respect your expertise and recommendation, but we feel that we do need to give our residents, some type of tax relief.
Okay, so you're looking at a half a meal is what you're
Yes,
wanting?
ma'am.
Okay, all right.
And if you could tell us what that will equate to and how that will impact the the current budget.
Okay, all right. You do that calculation, all right.
And I put forth that resolution through the legislative. I put forth that request about maybe 2 weeks ago. I'm waiting on the city attorney to draft it and send it through the process. But we will need that Attorney Hyman by the 31st.
All right, I'll get that calculation sent out to Mayor and Council.
All right, thank you.
All right, Dr. Rao.
Thank you for recognizing me. And Councilwoman Willis, thank you for mentioning the need to work with the tax assessor to make sure that that increase is not more than 3%. I know that legislation was introduced by Representative Bazemore a couple sessions ago. And so, of course, we saw the biggest increase last year in property valuations. I know I've received a lot of calls and people, are kind of anxious, wondering what that translates into the actual tax that they will pay for the current year. Ms. Slayton Dixon, while I really do want to see what this looks like before I say definitively, me and Councilwoman Willis had talked about that, but I'm also thinking about the 3% cap this that can go up. So I don't want to be totally premature on that. I really do want to see what the numbers look like. Because like you said, a lot of that has to do with the new real estate we got when we got food and industrial, and they also have needs. So we have to balance all of that out. So I will say I'm open. The 3% may be enough to give the homeowners relief, not totally sure, but also know that we have a whole new area that we have to service as well. So I just wanted to say that up for the record.
Okay.
And I look forward to seeing your analysis.
All right, thank you.
I'm sorry, I realized I was muted. Seeing no one else in the queue, this is, I believe, the ballot initiative that we were speaking of. It's the one at the bottom. And so I will make sure, Ms. Slayton Dixon, that you have that. And I think it might be a little bit more technical than just a simple 3%, because the language is obviously a little bit more complicated than that. I do have a question about timing. I think that Dr. Rowell is right. We have to consider the increased expenses that we have with Fulton Industrial Boulevard, but we also have to take into consideration the lost negotiations that we're having, and that those will obviously not be concluded until after we have fixed our millage rate, which puts us in an interesting situation. But that's all I have. I do have one follow-up question. With the homestead exemption, is that something that you only have to apply for one time, or if you are under 65, different than the senior homestead exemption, do you have to reapply for that exemption every year?
Yeah, once you apply for the exemption, as long as you own the home, live in the home, that exemption will stay there.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you all.
That Dr. Rao, go ahead.
One additional thing. Thank you, Mayor, for mentioning the lost. You're right. The timing has us in a precarious situation, to say the least. And I've been thinking about that a lot. If for some reason lost wasn't renewed, we couldn't add one new service. Our budget would look very similar to what it currently is. because I think if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Layton, this and how our budget increased by about 25 million.
It actually, yes, it did.
Right. And I think a loss is about 28 million we get per year currently. Is that correct?
Right, but we are actually projecting at the 18 million just until we know exactly what it's
Okay.
gonna be. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's good to be conservative, but I mean, if you just do the envelope math, if we've been receiving roughly 28 million, if that were to go away for some reason and our budget went up 25, we'd actually be looking that we might need to do some cuts. And so, having had that information, just trying to think worst case scenario, I have wanted to be, more conservative, which is why, I made the statement. I really want to see your analysis now that we have more information and taking into what does that 3% look like? We really don't know. And so, I don't want to put the city in a precarious situation, given that we had these one factor we don't have control over. We don't know exactly how those loss negotiations are going to go, but just assume it didn't happen. We're in a vastly different place than what's proposed.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dr. Rao. And I'll just ask for you all to see that note in the chat. We can talk about that later. Councilwoman Willis.
And this will be my last comment, the second comment. Thank you for recognizing me, Mayor. It's quite interesting that the municipalities are in this position because Fulton County did roll back their millage rate, and now the cities are in limbo, and I think it was one city in Fulton County that did roll back their millage rate. I have to go back and do that research, but I think I read something like that. But we shouldn't be in this limbo. We should be able to make a definitive decision to give our residents a tax break in the midst of inflation, and loss should not be a factor. And so residents who are listening to this millage rate hearing, I think that you should reach out to all the commissioners and express your opinions about this, because yes, we do need to service an area, but we're talking about a 56% increase in property taxes that we have received. And if it's any way that we could give our residents a little relief in the midst of inflation, I would like to do that. And then I also want residents to know, just for education purposes, I think if you are a property owner, you should have received your assessment by now from the Fulton County Tax Commissioner's Office. That assessment is not your tax bill, and that assessment may not have your homestead exemption on it. It's just what your fair market value is of your home as at the 40% assessment rate. The property tax bill you should be receiving around, I usually get mine around October or September, around that time frame. And those are the actual property taxes that will be due based on the property tax assessment that you currently have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And if there are no other questions or comments, this will conclude our first millage rate hearing. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, for the record, you need to open the public hearing. We did not receive any comments, but we need to officially open and close it.
I'm going to open the public hearing, and say that we haven't received any comments.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we did not receive any comments via online, email, or through the comment form. We do want to encourage citizens to provide comments. The form is available via public comment on the city's website. Thank you.
And it will remain available. It's not, I know sometimes the links like go down and up, but will it just stay up for these three? Is there one millage rate comment section?
Yes, it's the main comment page on the city's website, and it's been up since Friday, and it will remain active until August 31st.
Cool. Thank you very much. If it is, so I'm going to go ahead and close the hearing, the public hearing.
Yes.
All right, and your explanation, Miss Slayton Dixon, particularly of the millage rate was it was excellent, and I hope that we can find possibly some way to just put that presentation, either the video or the slides, on the website, and maybe put the comment. I'm just thinking about end users, right? Putting the comment section like right under that video, so when people watch the video or see the presentation, they can go and make their questions or comments. And I'm sure that we'll all, through our various newsletters and social media, make sure that we get that out so that people can make their comments.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mayor.
And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Please call the vote, Mr. Clerk.
Roll call vote. Councilmember Rao.
Yes.
Councilmember Gums.
Yes.
Councilmember, thank you, Councilmember Willis. Councilmember Sebastian is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Reeves.
Aye.
And I believe Councilmember Williams is absent. We are adjourned at 10:31 a.m.
Oh.
Recording stopped.